Hello YouTube, this is Reverend Evan Sackett once again. Now, as you may have noticed on these last few videos that I've been doing, I have been talking about different subject matter, not just about the Visual Circle Church. Now, this video is one that I dedicate to Charles Manson and the family. Now, I make this video because I would like to give my own interpretation of the Manson family happenings and the Manson era, and I'd like to give my own theory on what happened. Now, we all grew up with images of Charles Manson. I don't think I have to explain who he is or what he did. If you want to know, just simply type in Charles Manson under the YouTube search box and you'll find every video that you need to know about him. And Charlie Manson is grounded into my subconscious and will be for the rest of my life, because like I said, we all grew up with those images of Charlie Manson walking down courtroom hallways. We all grew up with those old shows about the Tate murders, the Tate LaBianca murders, all the Manson family members, what happened, what truly happened. And the man who is primarily responsible for telling us the story of what happened with Charlie and the family is a man named Vincent Bugliosi, who was the prosecuting attorney of Charles Manson and the family. He is also the author of the infamous Helter Skelter book, and this book is what probably all of the movies that you've ever seen about Manson is based on, or are based on. Now, Vincent's view on the whole matter was that Charles Manson was a sad throwaway child who spent more than half of his childhood and life in prison, and during that time he developed the skills to manipulate people in prison. He came out in 1967 with a rap sheet probably 20 pages long for petty crime, and he managed to use these superhuman powers to start a family and convince them to kill people. And as a matter of fact, at the trial, Manson was not allowed to testify in his own defense to the jury because Vincent Bugliosi claimed that he had hypnotic powers that might persuade the jury to find him innocent. How ridiculous is this? I mean, this goes beyond a charismatic cult leader concept, a Jim Jones or a David Koresh. I mean, they are saying that this man has these absolutely superhuman powers. Okay, let's review what happened in my belief of what happened. Let's go back and I will give you my theory of the matter. Charlie was released from prison in 1967. Keep in mind, this is 1967 in San Francisco on the Haight-Ashbury district. You had thousands and thousands and thousands, probably hundreds and thousands, of runaways and hippies flocking to this area trying to know what's going on. They knew there was a revolution happening. They wanted to be part of it. They wanted to find people who were going to tell them what was going on. And who was one of these individuals that people decided to go to find out what was going on? Charlie Manson. I don't think that anyone could influence people and gain a membership level, if that's what you want to call it, as Charlie did at this day and time. But back in the 60s, I could have easily done it, because you had all of these hippies eating food out of dumpsters, not knowing what they wanted to do. All they knew is they wanted to be part of this peace-love thing, and I could walk up to them, tell them I'll bring you close to it, and they would follow me. And this was not even Manson's original intention, I don't think. He met a girl named Sandra Good. He wanted to fuck her, and he did, and she liked his music, found him to be very charismatic, and before you knew it, more girls started following Manson around. He was an excellent pimp. He knew how to talk to women. He knew how to keep them intrigued. He fed them LSD. When you take LSD, it almost wipes your psyche clean, and it turns you into an infant. Your mind is out of control, and you have to have someone to stay there with you to keep your mind in control. Well, back to the family, Manson had all of these women. Now, what do women attract? Beautiful young women? They attract men. Now, keep in mind that all of these family members, or most of them, were not stupid kids. Probably about 80% of the women had college degrees, most of them bachelor's and master's degrees. Sandra Good was a librarian. Gypsy, whose real name is Catherine Scher, had a master's degree in nuclear physics, I believe. Tex Watson was a former college student. These kids were intelligent. They were not stupid by any means. They had just run into a rough spot in their lives, and they needed some guidance. And here was this guy who had been in prison for most of his life, who was a lot older than them, and they looked up to him as a father. Now, by the time they reached Spawn Ranch and were living at it in the late 60s, around early 69, I believe Charlie began to realize that he did have control over these people. But I don't think he asked anyone to kill for him. I think Tex Watson is the man behind the Tate murders. I think Tex wanted to impress Charlie because he probably misinterpreted the philosophies that Charlie had given him, and so he told Manson, "Listen, I want to go do something for you." Charlie probably said, "Go ahead." Charlie told the girls to go with Tex, and they ended up slaughtering people. Now, these kids, even to this day, they spend their lives in prison. Tex, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten, and Susan Atkins, and they will admit that they did these crimes. They will say they were very remorseful, it's killing them, but they still claim that Charlie was the main person who caused it. They were the ones who did it. When they got in the car to drive to the Tate house, they could have just as easily taken another road, driven out of state, and never seen Manson or the family again. But they chose not to. They chose to murder those people. And Charles Manson is blamed mercilessly for these murders, and he did not commit them. I can go tell somebody to kill anybody, and if they go and do it, is it my fault just because this guy is crazy enough to do what I told him to do? If someone sees somebody telling somebody to murder somebody on television and they go out and do it, do you want to put the person who was on that television show in prison? Of course not. Looking back on that case, it was utterly ridiculous that Manson was ever prosecuted. Possibly, at the very most, he should have been prosecuted for conspiracy to commit murder or accessory to murder, but not first-degree murder without even getting his hands dirty. And Vincent Bugliosi seems to be this very narrow-minded individual who feels that Manson is nothing but pure evil. There is not a human on the face of this earth that is pure evil. We all have a consciousness. I don't care what we do or how evil people think we are. But the bottom line is that Charlie and the family are not what they have been perceived to be. They were not a cult. They were simply a group of kids who were trying to find their place in the world, following an ex-con who realized that he had power over these kids, which he had developed unintentionally. Sure, they were living out in the middle of nowhere. Sure, they were taking acid every night and having sex orgies. But Manson was not doing these things with these kids in order to control them. The reason why they were out in the middle of nowhere was because they wanted to be someplace where they wouldn't get busted. Not because Manson wanted to get them out in the middle of nowhere to deprogram them and then reprogram. He gave them acid to keep them entertained so they'd stick around, so they'd do things for him. Now, I do admit that he was using those people, I believe, but he wasn't trying to start a helter-skelter war. Manson was intelligent. I wouldn't say that he's just this amazingly intelligent individual as Vincent Bugliosi has made him out to be, but he is more intelligent to know that this whole helter-skelter theory that Vincent Bugliosi lays on him is total and absolute bullshit. By the way, this is one of my ride-along videos that I've been doing quite frequently, which I enjoy doing. But the bottom line is, don't believe everything you read. Do some research, and I would suggest anyone who wants to know the Manson story, the true Manson story about what really happened, do not read any of this shit you find on the internet or on the History Channel, because it's all based on Vincent Bugliosi's book and his concepts. Read actual eyewitness accounts from people that were in the family. Read about what they saw on Charlie, the things that they did, Charlie's intentions. Charlie had no such intentions to rule the world. And think about it, even if this whole helter-skelter war did break out, and Charles and the family were going to go hide, they were going to go hide in the desert, in the bottomless pit. that they didn't even know whether it existed or not, according to Vincent Bugliosi. Had they made it to this pit, had it existed, how in the fuck were they going